Good day. Video games and movies seldom go together. Video game movies are usually terrible because there's so many cooks in that kitchen. You've got the director and he's got all of his ideas. You got the writer for the movie and they've got ideas. You've got the producers for the movies and they've got ideas. And so you can have something as great as Doom turn into that god-awful mess with The Rock. Now, books and games are a little different. Usually you have one writer, and while he might have some guidelines to follow, usually he's going to have played the game and actually care about the source material, which is why most video game books are remarkably good. Now today, we're going to be taking a look at the Doom 3 novelizations. Yes, Doom 3 got 2 novels, and they spread that story pretty thin. So with that, let's crack them open and take a look.
The Doom 3 novels were penned by the game's writer, Matthew Costello, and he split the story into 2 parts. The first novel, titled Worlds on Fire, was released on February 26, 2008. The second novel, Maelstrom, was released on March 31, 2009. There was supposed to be a third novel, and really, did Doom 3's story need that many bloody books to tell? And you can really tell that third book got canned late in the writing process for book 2, because in that book, the entire latter quarter of Doom 3's story gets done in like 20 pages. So, what we got here is a novel retelling of the story scene in the Doom 3 video game. I was surprised to say the least that this game got a novelization at all, and in addition that it got a novelization that late, coming in 4 years after the release of the game. The original Doom novelizations came out about 2 years after that game was released. You might think it rather silly that a run-and-gun game like Doom, or the more fleshed out Doom 3, got novels at all, with some people wondering what kind of a plot Doom could possibly have. The reality is, the stories for both original Doom and Doom 3 are easily adaptable to novels and movies. Essentially all you got is a badass protagonist fighting an invasion from hell, or in the case of the original Doom novels, aliens genetically modified to look like demons. Whatever your lot, all you need to do is just fill in the details and you got a winner. Black Library has been doing variations of that plot for almost 30 years. What made the original Doom novel so great is that it took Doom and turned it into a compelling narrative and stuck close to what little lore there was at the time. The Doom 3 novels should have been even better since that story was more fleshed out from the get-go and they were written by the game's writer. Instead of just giving us a clear, concise retelling of the game's story in narrative format, we got a long, meandering mess that ultimately leaves the reader a little unsatisfied. Doom 3's story was straightforward enough. It's set in a cyberpunk future where the Union Aerospace Corporation controls everything. They got a city size based on Mars where they do all their mad science. One doomed space marine shows up and 2 seconds into his workday, Hell invades via a teleporter experiment. The forces of Hell possess people and turn them into zombies, and then they unleash demons upon the base. The protagonist of the story is the Doom 3 guy, and he has to fight the forces of Hell, find a way to seal the Hell portal, and take down the vile villain named Dr. Betruger. You could easily tell this story in one bloody novel. But no, Mr. Costello split Doom's 3 story into 2 novels and spends as little time as possible telling the story of Doom 3. I get you need to flesh out the world and the characters more, that's what the original Doom novels did, but in the original Doom novels, the writer spent the bulk of the book retelling the plot of the game, because that's what you're reading the bloody book for. The Doom 3 novels spend a great deal of time on literally everything but the Doom 3 story, and what is kind of sad is that the Doom 3 bits are the best part of the novels, as that is the most compelling part of the story, and that's why you bought the bloody things. This novel series, unlike the first Doom novels, is set from the third-person perspective instead of the first, and as such we get a number of viewpoint characters, and this is for good and ill. So with that in mind, we do get some good characters. Doom 3 guy is named John Kane, and unlike the original Doom novel's protagonist, a one Corporal Flynn Taggart, Kane is a lieutenant and thus doesn't work for a living. His personality is much more cynical and world-weary, but he is still a good guy, even if he is far less friendly than Flynn Taggart. He can still kick ass and take names with the best of them though. Also, like with the original Doom novels, we got a female sidekick. She is named Maria and is a former boxer. She and Kane meet on Mars and get thirsty for one another. As protagonists go, they're great. Too bad we're rarely going to see them. The world for Doom 3 is a product of its time and has aged pretty poorly. The original Doom novels were your basic cyberpunk fare, but Doom 3 is your current year climate change cyberpunk. Peak oil, no water, collapsing infrastructure, the usual for today and in the early 2000s. I myself died in the water war of 2017, and this is my cyber ghost bringing you this review from beyond the grave. Despite the rather silly nature of this cyberpunk world, it works well and flavors the story decently, even if it sometimes comes off like a modern-day Twitter screed. The action, what little there is competently written and exciting. Too bad the writer focuses on literally anything but the action. Now, I get it, ladies and gentlemen. Novels need to focus on world building, but it should not be to the detriment of the story you came to read. Most of the novels will focus on side characters, politics, and a lot of really pointless bullshit. Book 2 is the worst about this, as the writer chose to spend a good number of pages on a plot that literally goes nowhere at all. So, with all that in mind, do I recommend them? Kinda, maybe a little. The Doom 3 bits are the best of the lot, but they are maybe less than half a novel's worth of content spread across 2 books. The massive amount of filler slogs, although Book 1's filler is better than Book 2's. All told, I will say this, if you already like Doom 3, get them. You'll like the Doom 3 bits at least, and you won't feel too cheated. If you're not a fan of the games, skip them, as they are pretty pedestrian sci-fi action books at best, and you can and will find better. Alright, let's dive into some generic crap with a little bit of good. Doom 3 Worlds on Fire introduces our protagonist and the world he inhabits. We also get viewpoints from Maria, Dr. Betruger, and the head of the Union Aerospace Corporation, and a couple other side characters. This novel reimagines part of the Doom 3 story for better and most assuredly for worse. So, the book starts up by introducing Mars City and the hope for the future. Eventually, we cut to Lieutenant Kane. In the original Doom novel, we get a short segment set on Earth where Flint Taggart is introduced and we see him having to deal with a crappy officer. In short, shitty officer orders a massacre, Taggart tries to stop him, fails, and then gets busted for striking an officer, but still taken to Mars for some reason. In the Doom 3 novel, we get much the same, only a little better and a little worse. John Kane is a lieutenant and he is fighting with the reasonable Marines in the Balkans. Some Marines are left to die by uncaring higher-ups. Yeah, that sounds about right. But Kane decides to take his troops and rescue them. Sounds good, right? Too bad this takes up a huge chunk of the novel, in addition to all the other crap going on. And really, Kane's plot is the only one worth a damn, as all the rest of the stuff with Betruger and the UAC ahead is just filler. Kane rescues the troops, but as you might imagine, he gets in trouble. Initially, the brass wants him shot, but they cut up a deal where he doesn't die, but instead gets sent to Mars as a Space Marine. Unlike in 40K, Space Marines in Doom 3 are basically rent-a-cops and held with contempt. Well, you know what? My armor is contempt! Kane gets his ass to Mars, and finally, about halfway into the novel, the actual plot you came to read begins. And you got no idea how bloody infuriating it was to read through half a novel of generic sci-fi filler to finally get to the good stuff. The Mars stuff is great. Kane and Sergeant Kelly get along a little better in some ways than they did in the game, as Kelly recognizes that Kane is a quality officer with a huge amount of experience. Kane's sidekick Maria gets some great narrative of her own, and she even saves the UAC head at one point, but is punished for it, of course. And so she and Kane have a lot in common, and there is some great sexual tension. So finally, about 3/4 of the way into the novel, we get the Hell Invasion. And it's okay, it's very different from the game. In the game, there is a grand total of 1 Hell Invasion, and in the novels, there are 2. The first one happens in this novel, and we see it start from Betruger's perspective as he opens up the portal to let the Hell Beasts in. Despite all the filler, we never get much info on the nature of the Hell Demons, or why they even want to conquer Earth. Seems like something you would flesh out, Mr. Costello. The monsters are also handled differently as well. For one, they are a bit smarter. The melee zombies in the game just kind of walked at you and slapped you around a bit. The zombies in the novel use pack tactics to take down Marines. Eventually, Kane and Kelly work together to fight back, and the invasion is eventually stopped. And then the book just kind of ends with pretty much no resolution. Yeah, we kind of get blue-balled here, and the cover, as you can see, from Maelstrom is blue, and that is quite accurate because this might as well be called Blue Balls the novel. Worlds on Fire ended on kind of just a lackluster note. The invasion was stopped and everybody was okay. I mean, that's still exciting enough, I guess. You would think Book 2 would carry on from where the previous novel left off, right? No? But does it at least start with something cool, like say some demons talking to Betruger about the next hell invasion? No, it doesn't do that either. Instead, it starts up at an undersea research station on Earth where they study worms. What the hell? Why? Oh, yes, my dear sweet listener, the novel starts up about as far from Mars as possible. There is a subplot about undersea researchers trying to figure out how worms survive in the deep sea. Yeah, time out. All those people that hated on the weird hard science fiction plot that the original Doom novels had, yeah, they got nothing on this bloody worm plot, and unlike that weird hard SF plot in the original Doom novels, this worm plot goes nowhere. This is a novel about Doom bloody 3, and we spend ages on this bloody worm nonsense, and what's worse is that the Doom 3 stuff is great, but the writer spends as little time as possible on it. When we finally get through all the crap and get back to our dudes, there is a second hell invasion, and it's good stuff. The demons really press the Marines, and the combat writing does improve. Maria and Kane eventually get separated, and we catch up with the game, and Kane has to go to hell to get the soul cube, and this is some of the best parts of the whole bloody duology. Hell is written to be legitimately creepy and very Lovecraftian. Kane goes partially nuts while he fights through fucking hell. Too bad this takes up about maybe a quarter of the novel. Why, oh why did we have to spend all the bloody pages on the two worms? And I know what you're going to say, well, if there was a third novel, it would have been fine. No, it wouldn't have been. Even if there was a third novel, that is no justification for spending any time on goddamn worms. Like in the game, Sergeant Kelly is turned into Saboth, and he is taken down with the BFG. But in the novel, the BFG is literally a big fucking gun, and just uses regular old bullets and not phase plasma. Kane has his rock off with the devil, soul cube to the face, the end. But Kane survives, Maria survives, humanity lives, and the novel just kind of peters out. And what's worse is the novel doesn't end on Kane's story. Oh no, it wraps up the worm plot by them figuring out that the worms survive because of some sort of parasitic bacteria. Truly the most compelling story that could have been told in a Doom 3 novelization. Ooh boy, lads and lasses, were these books disappointing. And I really had high hopes for them. See, I got these when they came out. In 2008, I was still a teenager, and I was working at my local shitty grocery store, and what do I see sitting on the shitty paperback book rack? Why, it's Doom 3, the book! And oh, good God, was I psyched to read it. I took it home, cracked it open, and was hit with filler. But man, when I got to the Doom 3 bits, I couldn't put it down, and for years afterwards, I would say that the first book was pretty good, and the second book was pretty bad. And my grandfather even agreed. He loved the first book, but hated that second book. But in all reality, both of these books are pretty lackluster. It's the special kind of disappointment where you get a tiny bit of what you want, surrounded by bullshit. So, if you bought these books back in 2009, should you open the bloody books again now in 2024? I would say, yeah. When I reread these for the review, I wasn't suffering too much. And, once you get past the filler, the Doom 3 stuff is worth reading, especially if you read it back then. My recommendation really is just skip past all the crap and just read the good stuff. And so, I'm General Lotz, wishing you much better Halo the Flood, and much better Doom Knee Deep in the Dead, or whatever makes you happy.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and please consider leaving a like or a comment, as the algorithm desires your soul. And I want to thank all those fans who have supported this channel, both past and present.